Hi everyone, this is Mark. I'm going to be spending some time on showing how to replace the inflation valve on a Mantis wing and also show you what the problem is. So it looks like after about 8 to 10 months of use of our wings, and we have a lot of wings. We have a 2.5 up to 5 meter. My wife flies the smaller wings, and I fly or use the 3 meter on up. And so we use our wings a lot, and it looks like after about 8 months of usage, the valve is starting to leak, but it's the valve that's glued to the bladder, so it needs to be replaced. So let me show you what the deal is here of what's happening. So I was just out on the 3.5 yesterday, and it started to get a little soft out there. So what's happening, if we take a closer look in here at the valve, so when you inflate it, you don't hear any leak, but if I just give a little push up and down, you can hear the air coming out. And so what's happening is down here, the plastic is actually starting to crack on the part that's glued to the bladder. So you can find this problem on your own too. So when you inflate, you might not hear anything, but just give a little wiggle, and if you hear some air coming out, then you've got a problem for sure. So I'm going to go in and we're going to take this out and replace it with an Airtime bladder. So let's do that. So this is the fourth wing I've had to replace in the past month, and all of our wings are about 8 to 10 months old. So it is a problem, and maybe a problem even with the O3. So I'm working on old Mantis O2 wings right now, but maybe they got a bad batch of valves or something like that, but it's starting to be a problem. So I'm expecting our other wings that we haven't replaced yet. So I've done 6 total, 4 of ours, and then 2 friends' wings, O2s as well, have had this problem. So let's go in and pull out the bladder and take a look what's going on. Before we do that, show you the things we need. So we're going to need a heat gun, and preferably a heat gun with a bunch of temperature settings. A lot of them come high or low. This has 7 temperature settings, which is pretty good. And then our actual Airtime bladder for a Mantis wing. And a little pro tip, the slingshot one will work as well. So it's the same one, just marketed or branded a little different, but exact same replacement. So slingshot or the Cabrinha one. We got a light here for seeing what we're doing. Reading glasses if you're blind like me. There you go. For that, a pair of scissors. This will be optional. I'll show you that in a little bit. Marker pen, some clippers, wire ties when we put things back together. And then I'll describe this in a little bit. It's 2 pieces of cardboard with a hole in it. We'll be using that when we actually put the bladder or put the Airtime patch onto the bladder. This is a key instrument that you will need to fabricate for that. So, all right. Feel like I'm becoming an expert at this because I've done so many. I don't want to become an expert, but that's what is turning out to be the case. So first thing we want to do is we want to take off, actually let me get some light on the picture here so you can see what's going on. So we want to take, in order to pull the bladder out of the zipper down here, we want to take the valve off of, or the inflation area off of the strut. So what you do here, there's a little tab here. You just kind of pull this off, push in that little plastic piece, and then the cover will come off there, so we can slide that off. Then there's a little wire tie right here. I wouldn't cut that, just pull it right off. So just give it some tension, and then just pull it right off the stem. And that pops off, and then you can just slide off the wire tie off of there. And then on the valve here, there's a little clip. So take that clip off, this little clip, and put it in a place where you can lose it. Very important. I'll put it up here. That's my place where I like to lose things. And then we want to press it on through onto the inside. So I kind of do it diagonally. You can kind of see, because this little stem thing gets in the way, or this little tab. So I kind of push it down a little bit, then turn it diagonally in the hole, and then cram it down there. So we'll get it started here and then show you on the video. So I got to press through, and then I turn it 45 degrees there, push that little tab into the corner, and then it pops down into the chamber of horrors. So there it goes there. All right, so now we got that. Now we go over to the where the inflation valve is here, and right next to that is a little Velcro here along with a zipper. The zipper. So take that and then open the zipper downward, and then that will give us access to the bladder. So the trick here is underneath here is all Velcro, and there's a little black tab. If we look in there, you see it right there, this little black tab. That's where you start to get the Velcro going. That's a key thing to pull on. If you don't know where that is or find that, it's really tough to get the Velcro off of this thing. So you start with that tab, and you just kind of work your thumb in there. It takes a little bit of time to slowly get it going. So working the Velcro off, and I'll show you the whole thing in a second here. So I'm just pushing the Velcro down, just releasing that. And once that's off, I can start to pull the bladder out, and I kind of straighten the wing out so I can pull it from either side and get some bladder material outward, like that. And then before I do anything right now, I kind of mark where this tab is with my pen, because when I put on the new valve, I kind of want it oriented like this so the tab is in the same spot. So I don't forget where that spot is. I just put a mark kind of down the bladder a little bit, like that. Just give me an indication of the orientation of where that little pull tab is. Okay. So the leak, if we look closely here, get some light on this. The cracking is happening kind of right where the plastic is actually the piece that's cracking. The bladder material is actually okay, but the plastic is actually fading. So in the ones that were really bad, this whole plastic ring is kind of sheared right off. And so this one's a little harder because it's just starting to go to see. Let's see if I can see a little spot right there where it might be going. But anyway, that is the problem. So it's really the plastic is the part that's cracking, not the bladder detaching from the plastic. So, okay, so given all that, now we want to remove this from the bladder. The key is to use a heat gun to do that. I think some folks might initially be like, oh, let's just cut it on out. But if you use a heat gun, you can save more of the bladder in a lot of cases. In other cases, you can, and I'll show that. We'll see how this one comes out. So we're going to set up our heat gun. So let's get that going. And for this cobalt one, I'm going to pop it on for a setting of 3. And it doesn't take that long to warm up. And I'm actually, one thing I also forgot is to get a pair of gloves. So let's go get that. Okay. So what I'm going to do is just kind of work the bladder a little bit with the heat gun. And the heat's not really going to hurt the bladder, it's the material itself. It's really going to impact the glue. The bladder itself is pretty robust. So we're just going to work this around. Again, we're on 3. I'm just slowly working it around. Let's give that a shot. And then we peel it. We should be able to peel it off, and you can see it just peels right off. But that's the Velcro piece. We still need to get off this piece here. So I'm going to try to work that as well with my gloves, and it's just starting to go right there. So let's give it a little bit more heat. And that's what normally happens. It's kind of a two-phase process. The Velcro part comes off, and then we can take the remainder off. And we'll keep working it. All right, let's try that out. Again, you don't need to do a lot to get it off. And it helps to have your glove on because you can handle a little bit more heat. Okay, so that's starting to come off now. And you just slowly peel it off. Just like that. And so now the entire valve piece is off. Let's turn off the heat gun. And so there's our valve. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to trim this a bit with the scissors. Sometimes when you take it off, it's like perfect. It's like all set to go to put the patch on. But you can see this is a little, it still has, you know, some raised glue areas and things like that. So what I'm going to do now, I'm just going to trim that off with the scissors. And you can make the argument, well, you could have trimmed it just to begin with, just around that area and not use the heat gun, which is true. But I find half of these, I can actually save more material. The other half is like, well, I need to trim it anyway. And so you start slow with the heat gun and see how it pans out. So there's the valve piece. All right. So let us grab our trusty scissors here. And I'm just going to basically cut out all the glue part right in there. And so we'll put on our reading glasses. Get a little closer in here. Ooh, so much better. So I'm just going to go around nice and slow. Take your time. Just want to save as much of the bladder material as possible. But the Airtime bladders, they have such a wide base, you can really cover a fairly large hole. Like this. All right. Rotate it a little bit. Definitely pays to have very sharp scissors. All right. So there's our stuff that's gone. So that's our resulting hole. Again, sometimes you can get it to keep actually a little bit more material here, depending on how it peels off with the heat gun. But probably 2 of those were like that, and then the other 4 were kind of like this. So that's looking good. Okay, so now I'm just going to slide my little tool under here, and the tool I'm talking about is this. So what this is two pieces of cardboard duct taped together, and then you make the hole the size of the bottom of the patch. So let's open up the patch here. Pull that out. Unscrew the valve top, put that up there. Okay, so when you press this down onto the bladder, you need to have something that it equals or is a little bit more than the thickness of the base there. And so you make your hole on your cardboard match that piece. So we're going to slide the cardboard underneath, and then this goes on top with the bladder on top, and it allows you to kind of recess it and press it down nice and evenly. So that's your little fabrication tool. So before you do anything, you just kind of get a lay of the land before you start cleaning the bladder or doing all that stuff, which we'll be doing in a second here. I just kind of get things straight, and I do have my mark here, which I know that's where the tab is going to go. So that's going to equal the tab here. And one note with the with these bladders is the original one had Velcro all the way around it. This one just has a Velcro piece right here. And initially I thought, well, like, wow, you really need to have all the Velcro. But after using the fix and applying the fix for, on 6 wings, this actually holds really well. And I notice it doesn't twist or anything when it's turning. So in some ways, maybe this was a little bit overkill, and the replacement one works just fine. If you were really wanted to maybe make it factory, you could take the old Velcro and probably glue it on there with the tab facing the same direction. Actually, that's a bad idea. No, you wouldn't do that. Not sure. Anyway, so there it is. Okay. So let's take our piece of cardboard here, slide that in. And this allows you to pull out the right amount of material, right amount of bladder material. Okay, so I'm just kind of lining it up, and I'm like, okay, so when we put the patch on, get a little closer here. Tilt it a little bit like that. There we go. So when we put the patch on, it's going to go right like that into there. So that's looking good. So I got to get things set up, and I'm going to start cleaning it shortly here. But I just kind of get a lay of the land of how it's going to lay. I've had a case where I had to trim more material off of the bladder because it kind of created a little volcano effect. So you really want, when you kind of lay it down, and you're not going to, stretch it. When you put the patch on, you're just going to kind of hold it like this. And you do need another person. My wife will be helping me in a little bit here for that. Okay, so the patch kit comes with 2 alcohol pads right here. And I think I actually go with a bottle of alcohol and a paper towel to start. So let's go ahead and start doing that. So I'm gonna go get my alcohol. One second. All right, so we got our rubbing alcohol, and I just do initial first pass of cleaning the whole area, and just note how large the patch is. And so you definitely want to clean it, a little bit more than the diameter or the circumference of this when it's placed on there. So you just get a sense. So I'm going to pretty much clean that whole area. And so we'll get all liquored up here. Initially, I just kind of do a general pass, going around. Get a little bit more light on the situation here. There we go. And then we'll do a little bit more. More alcohol on my paper towel. Like that. Okay, and I'm going to take a dry paper towel, and you want to start getting a feel that the bladder becomes tacky as you start to rub it with the paper towel, and this is already starting to become tacky. That is really key for the glue to stick well. So now that I have it to this state, then I actually go ahead and use the little alcohol pads that Airtime gives you. So this is kind of the final coat, if you will. So going along with these guys, just working it and then taking our paper towel. You know, is it starting to feel tacky? It is. I'm getting some resistance of rubbing the paper towel on there. Okay. So once I have that, then I take the final alcohol pad, do a final swipe with that, and not use the paper towel. I don't want any of the particles of the paper towel to be on the bladder. So I just give it a final kind of coat with this. You just keep working it around like that. All right. So now we have that, we are ready to apply the patch. I'm not going to touch that with you know, any oil on my fingers and things like that, that area. I'm just going to work it around. Going to work it around so that the hole of my little template here is right in the middle, and also get any wrinkles out of the bladder. And so when I hold it down, I want everything to be as flat as possible. There is some room for error here, so you don't want to get too crazy with it. But I just want to get the wrinkles out of the top part of the bladder and the lower part of the bladder. You can always pull more bladder material out of the wing if you need to. I see I just got a little wrinkle right there on the lower part. So you want it, so when my wife actually puts the patch down and I do the hold part here, I want to make it so that when I'm holding this, everything looks pretty good. So don't burn yourself on your heat gun. So again, just kind of looking at it, getting any wrinkles out of the lower part of the bladder. So in lining the circle right up with that. And so that's looking good. And so once I have that, I put a little mark on the bladder, and I'm really marking the other side of the bladder so that when my wife Cassie puts it down, she has a bullseye to go against. And so I'm going to put a mark right in the middle there with my Sharpie, and then on goes the repair. If you notice, I did touch this a little bit, so I'm just going to give it a little more rubbing down here, like that. And then again, I'm going to take that bullseye and just mark it right in the middle. And now it's time for the patch. All right, so I have my lovely assistant here Cassie's going to help me with this. It's really a two-person operation to do this. So I'm going to hold the bladder flat. I'm not going to stretch it. I'm just going to get out any kind of major wrinkles by holding it there. And then Cassie's going to put the patch right onto the bullseye. Slide the bullseye a little bit there. So, and then lining up the Velcro piece with our little black mark that we had there. And so I'm going to just kind of flatten that out here. And then Cassie's going to pop it right in. And I'm not going to give too much tension on the bladder. So yeah, we're good to go. And Cassie's going to hit the bullseye right there. And she's going to press it in. I'm going to let go. And then squeeze it around. And now it's affixed. So really now the key part comes into play. So we're going to put that in there. And it says on the red card here, which that comes with the is stretch. So what they want you to do is create a pleated outside to the patch. So what you do is this, more light on the topic here, is you go around and you pull really hard. Thanks, man. Is you pull really hard on the material, and you're not going to break the bladder at all. Really hard on the patch, and about I just go almost every quarter inch or half inch. I just pull really hard on the material, and you're stretching it really as hard as you can with your fingers. So every half inch, I just kind of go around in a circle, and you're creating a kind of a pleated outside of the patch, and that's what really affixes the glue to the patch. I'm sorry, affixes the glue to the bladder. So we're just going to go around in a circle here, kind of doing our just really as hard as you can. You're not going to rip the bladder by doing this. You just really want to get that glue to set in with this. And then kind of rotate the other way. So I'll go a little further with that. And you can kind of see that pleated pattern I'm creating on the bladder right there. So I'll just keep on going. About every half inch, move your fingers down and just pull it apart. Pull it apart. Pull it apart. By the end, your fingers should be sore. As you do this, going around. The only little challenging part is when you get to the Velcro spot, you can't, of course, since that's sewn onto the patch, you can't stretch it completely right there. So I kind of get on each side of it and go right to the other side, kind of work that. Move that around and then do a rotation the other way. So we'll twist the bladder all the way around and we'll just start pleating it right like that. Okay, so I've done a full 360. Then I take a look at the bottom. I kind of shine my light on the bottom, and you will get sometimes the bottom of the bladder sticking to the exposed part. I just take a look and just looking for any there's any kind of major wrinkles, and just there aren't any if you do it as a two-person job. So that looks like a nice repair. And then I just go around and just a little bit more. I maybe do a little pleated on the inside. So I just do a little final stretch, more not on the outside of the patch, but just more on the inside. Not as aggressive. You can't really stretch it that much, but why not, as they say. So I just kind of do that. Going around. There you go. So there's the finished product right there. And so you want that kind of pleated outside to the patch. Our Velcro is lined up with our black mark there. And really the key there is if you had to kind of pull this out, you have something to grab onto. But it really, if you messed it up and you put this somewhere else, it's not a big deal, because on the inside of the leading edge, there's Velcro all the way around here. So it's going to grab onto that Velcro right there. So at this point, I mean, you could just go out and pack this up and go kiting. I'm going to let this sit overnight, just not to muck with moving it around. And then I'll just do a video in the morning of putting it back in. There you go. All right, we are back the next day, so the glue has had time to set. And again, you know, some people just put the patch on and pop it back in there, go out and ride, but I do like to have it set overnight for the patch. So now let's put everything back together. So first thing is to pop this back into pop the bladder back in, and make sure it's kind of generally lined up as you kind of push it back in there. So I just kind of shove it back in there, not lining anything up or putting the valve in, the new valve in yet. The first thing you want to do is pop it in there, and then I take my finger, pop it here, and then slide the new valve kind of generally into place, but I don't Velcro it yet. I just kind of generally put it there, and I take the wing, I lift it up, and I kind of wiggle it a little bit so that the inflation valve for the strut will slide down properly. So let's go ahead and do that. So give it a little shake. I'm still holding the new inflation valve to do that. So we'll lay it back flat. And then you just kind of feel for the valve, and light on the topic here. And it's actually, I can feel it. It's right here. The camera there. It's right there. So I'm just going to slowly kind of feed it over to where I want it, and I see it. And then pop it back through. And as I'm popping it through, I am actually giving it a bit of a shake, just so the bladder material isn't wrapped around the base of the valve stem here. So, and you can kind of see it sometimes if you see kind of bladder material in the opening there. You still want to shake it a bit, but that's looking good. A little bit of shake. And again, I come through diagonally, and the toughest thing with this is getting that little tab on the back side of the valve through. So you kind of put it in diagonally, and you push that tab right there, right on the edge. Kind of wiggle a little bit, now it just popped right through, right there. Okay, then we turn it into the proper orientation, which is facing the strut right there. And at this point we can put our clip on, which we hopefully haven't lost yet. There it is. So we can put our clip back on, and then we can put the hose back on, like that. That's good right there. And then we can take a wire tie. And most of the wings actually come with replacement little wire ties in the bag. I just have a whole slew of little ones here, the same size. And so we'll put our wire tie on there. Give that a nice tug. And then we'll grab our clippers. Snip off the end there. And then we'll put the this rubber cap back on there. And this little hole here, that's where this tab on the fill valve goes into that hole there. So you want to kind of wiggle it in, position, and make sure that little stem comes through the rubber cover there. Okay, so now we've got that in place. Now we can go back to where the inflation valve is. And again, here I just have it, it's actually right at the opening, so I'm putting my finger kind of right through the inflation valve. And I'm looking at the tab, and the tab should be facing that way. So what I'm going to do is just going to press down so the Velcro catches on that one side. And I'm going to press it down right there. So pushing the material all the way down, and you want to do that in order to put the valve back on. All right, so this is the original valve stopper that, so I'm going to use the one that came with the Airtime kit, so it's a little bit newer. So we'll run that through just take this off and pull it through the line here. Like that. So that is off. And grab the new one right here. And you want to make sure when you put this in, this plastic piece is going to go, and this is going to be the hardest part of the repair. This needs to pop onto there. And so when you slide it through, make sure that orientation is such that this closes down. I did one where I put it in the reverse accidentally, and so there's a little twist in it. So make sure when you slide it through here, that's the proper orientation so the valve will pop in and there's no twist in this little seal thing. So we'll pop it in through the line here. Like that. Does he need the reading glasses? Potentially. Let's see how it goes here. There we go. Again, so there's the orientation. Okay, so here's the toughest part of this repair, is getting this plastic seal to seat in the little groove around the valve. And so it's a pain to put this thing on there, but it's good to have it because it holds the valve down properly. Right there. Okay. So normally with this, what I do is I slide it into the side and get it to catch on one side, and it goes. So let's see the camera a little closer here so you can watch my frustration with this. All right, so what I'm trying to do is trying to get it cut. So you can see it already started to go into the groove there. So it's not too hard to get it like 180 degrees, but then for that final 180 degrees, it's just really hard to work it in, but you just slowly try to do it. And strong fingernails help. So you're just trying to work it around the corner. And I try not to use a screwdriver because I don't want to, I could pry it in there, but I don't want to catch the lip here and maybe put a little nick in the inflation part there, because this rubber part seats nicely on here, so that needs to remain really smooth. So I'll just work it away here. Again, I'm just pushing down with my fingernails. We'll see how many takes this. So it's getting there. You just kind of keep working it, but that last little bit is just really hard to get going down in there. So again, this is the hardest part, and maybe there's a better trick for getting this thing in there. But so we're about 70% of the way there. Sometimes I'll turn it a little bit, maybe that helps. Again, I'm getting the fingernail, just really trying to push it in there. I think I almost got it. All right. actually, put it in there and then give it a little twist back and forth to make sure it's fully seated. But you can see that ring is now seated, and that's this whole locking the valve in so it doesn't pop back in towards the bladder. All right, whoo, we did it without breaking a nail. Okay, so that's back in there. That's cool. Then the last thing, make sure you just zipper up this opening right here, so don't forget that part. So tuck the zipper in and then replace the Velcro right there. Over there. Okay, so now it's back together. So now let's pump it up and let it sit for a bit. So I'm gonna turn off the video and move to the garage. All right, so now we're in the garage here. We're gonna pump this wing up. So before you pump it up, since I pulled the bladder in from each side to get access through the zipper here, it's probably not in the right spot. So I do a nice kind of shake on each side. And also holding, this is another side point, when you ever shake your wing, hang on to the center strut. My mistake when I was doing that is on the O2 wings, there's this little string. See if I can show it to you. That hangs out here to hold the strut bladder in place. I tied this extra string to it. The problem is if you shake your wing, it slides through into here, and now it's not attached here. And when it's not, when you pump up your wing, sometimes you'll get a bubble there and your bladder will pop. So on O2 wings, make sure you can see the string. If you can see the string, tie another string to it, make it a bigger knot so it can't slide into the little pocket here. They fix that on the O3 wings. They have the string, but they also have multiple attachment points. So the strut bladder is attached to multiple points. But here, the only attachment point is where the inflation valve goes in, and that's it, and the string. If you don't see your string sticking out on your O2 Mantis, you got to pull the bladder out, put a string on it, and feed it back through so that you can get the string back through there. That's the only way. There's no way you're going to fish it once it gets lost in there. Anyway, so whenever I'm shaking my wings, from experience, I always hold on to the center strut so that doesn't fade in, even though I have my little extra knot attached there. Too paranoid on that. Okay. And then for inflation, I inflate it just a little bit and then shake it one more time. So we'll do our inflation. Pop that there. Like that. In we go. Over here. So just a little bit. I'm looking for, make sure there's no wrinkles or anything like that. Looks pretty good, but at this point, I'll just deflate it again and just do one more little shake. Make sure everything's just kind of seated properly. Now we'll do the full inflation, and we'll let it sit here for a while, for a couple of hours. Make sure it's all good. And I'm generally, on the Mantis O2, it says inflate to 8.5 psi. I'm normally going a half pound less than that on most of my wings. And who knows how accurate the inflation valve is, or the inflation pressure gauge. And as it inflates, I wiggle the center strut to make sure it's sitting properly into the top pocket here. Again, I've had probably 5 or 6 blowout right here, mainly because of the string problem, but again, more paranoia that you're going to blow out your center strut. Like that. So we'll go up to 8 psi. tighten our, make sure it's nice. Tighten the inflation valve and then put a ear on it. Make sure we don't hear any hissing. Also put an ear on the strut connection. So that looks good. All right. So that is good. We'll let it sit here for a couple hours and hope for the best, but all the repairs to this point have been successful and been using the Airtime replacements, and so far so good. Knock on bladder, no problems. There you have it. Enjoy.